When we play games, there is many things to experience while playing them, like the fun gameplay mechanics it might have, or the story and characters you just can't get enough of. But just because you have the game to play doesn't mean you'll get to experience everything it has to offer, whether it be because you got to a point in the game that you just couldn't beat because it was too hard, or maybe there was a piece of side content that you didn't care to do, or perhaps something that I brought up in the last part, where something outside of your control prevented you from playing a game. But regardless of what it is, I've said it before in part 1 and 2, I'll say it again, everyone experiences a game differently. And well, what I plan on doing here for the third time is talking about a few more of my non-experiences with specific games that I played while growing up. And well, I'm gonna start off here with an arcade game actually, that being the Simpsons arcade game, which is well known for not only being one of the best Simpsons games, but also one of the best beat-em-ups period. And this was a game I always tried to play whenever I saw it, mainly at a arcade that was down the shore. But what exactly did I miss out on when it comes to this game? Well, just simply beating it. I would just end up losing all my lives and then eventually all my money, then I couldn't keep playing. And like I said, I didn't have very many opportunities to actually beat this game. It was only whenever we went down the shore. And I guess it didn't help that this game has virtually no home releases even today. But yeah, I'm pretty sure the farthest I ever made it in this game was to the final boss of Mr. Burns, but never being able to beat him. So then that brings up the question of, did I ever come back to this game and actually beat it finally? Well, the answer is actually yes. This is because despite having no home releases of this game for like 20 years, out of nowhere in like 2012 or 2011 it was released to the Xbox 360 arcade and I believe the PS3 store. And as soon as I learned that, I bought this like day one. And I'm very happy to, because I'm pretty sure this game got like removed like a year later. But anyway, now that I had a proper version that I could play at home, one where you could even like tweak the settings to make the game easier, and one where I didn't have to pay a limited amount of real money in order to beat it, I was finally able to make it back to the final level and defeat Mr. Burns, saving both Maggie and the day, although one day I should probably actually beat it properly in an actual arcade. But anyway, that covers my first non-experience. Now on to my next one here, which involves one of the first games I ever played on the Xbox 360, Dead Rising. And while this is the first game in this iconic zombie sandbox series, where you're trapped in a mall where literally anything and everything is your weapon, and then just throw in great and memorable characters and fun gameplay mechanics like with the camera taking pictures, you end up with one of my personal favorite games of all time. So then, having said all that, what exactly did I miss out with this game? That would be never being able to use the laser sword, which, to quickly explain, certain achievements in this game do come with rewards that you unlock, but they do not unlock immediately. You have to complete a whole session of your game, get to the end, in order to properly unlock them. And in order to get the laser sword, you have to survive for at least 5 days within the infamous Infinity mode. The game mode where you need to be constantly, getting health because it's slowly draining from you. And where you have to be patient as hell because every day in this game is the equivalent to 2 hours. So for the laser sword specifically, you have to at least survive for 10 hours. And well, this is something that I managed to do. So then what exactly did I do wrong that led to me not being able to use the laser sword despite unlocking the achievement? Well, this is because the achievement in question to unlock this, as well as the achievement for 7 days, is a long time process, 14 hours overall. And well, I wanted to play it safe because I'm pretty sure that I was planning on going to bed at some point during this and just keeping my console on overnight, as well as just the simple fact that I didn't want the game to freeze at all or glitch or anything. And because of all this, I decided to install my game onto my 360, which is an option you can do when you have a physical version of it, and I guess it made it run better as well as not screw up as often or in general. But I did this just to play it safe, so I could have no issues happen while I was playing. And so I played through, no issues happened, and I got the achievements. So then that leads me to what happened after. That being that I figured now that I had the achievement, I didn't need that space being burnt up by the install. So I went to go delete it, but I made a costly mistake. That being that I mistakenly chose delete all when it came to the whole game instead of its install only. And as it was deleting, I realized my mistake. I just deleted my game save and completely lost my entire 100% profile before I could even get to play around with the laser sword. So then the question becomes, did I ever go back and rectify this mistake? Well, this is another one of those yes and no situations, where I did actually do it, but I didn't do it on the original version. Instead, I did it on the next-gen version, which I believe is like virtually identical to the original version, which includes all the game's achievements. So I managed to get them all and finally get myself the laser sword, and I could boot up this version of the game anytime I want to use it. Which is great and all, it just sucks that I'll probably never get it in the original version, since I'm really not willing to do 14 hours again for a third time. But anyway, that covers my second non-experience. Now on to my third one here. It involving the second Paper Mario game, The Thousand Year Door, and well, this is yet another legendary classic in my collection. What is not only arguably the best Mario RPG, but one of the best RPGs in general. A game that I played and beaten many times as a kid, and even a few times as an adult. A game that, looking back on it, necessarily wasn't the hardest game in the world, but as a kid I definitely had my struggles with it, especially when it comes to the specific part of it I didn't get to experience. That being beating the Pit of 100 Trials, which is essentially like 100 trials of enemies that you have to keep going until you reach the end. And the farther you get in, of course, the enemies get harder, and at the end you have to fight a major boss. Now, it's not to say that I never attempted this as a kid, because I did give this at least a few attempts, with I believe the deepest I ever got was like in the 80s or 90s, before I distinctly remember losing my life for getting a game over to one of the wizard enemies. And well, this was something that I just kinda took a break from, with a lingering thought of one day I'll return to properly do this finally. And well, this is a situation of I finally have an excuse to do it in the form of this video. So then the question becomes, did I finally succeed at doing this challenge? Well, to start off, I really wanted to play it like truly safe. Like not only stock up on all the necessary items, but also go 50 layers in and get the sack that doubles your item amounts, and then reset the challenge. But I was very happy to see that I actually didn't have to do that part, since apparently in one of my old save files I already did that. And so with that in mind, I went out and bought a whole bunch of life shrooms and made a whole bunch of jam and jellies. I even made sure to get that one trouble in the trouble center that makes you have to go to the 50th floor and blow up some graffiti. But after all that preparation, I was off into the trials. And well, the first 40 some odd floors were really just honestly tedious. Just me knocking out the basic enemies and moving on. Past that point, it kinda got a bit tougher, with the enemies dealing more damage and me needing to heal more often. It basically being a balancing act of using the sweet feast or the sweet treat as well as getting my star power back from the audience. Then I got kinda scared when I got into like the really deep levels, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. Since the enemies down there really do a lot of damage and have a lot of health and defense points. I actually managed to lose a couple life shrooms along the way because of my partners, and I just had to play much more strategically in general, trying to figure out what abilities to use and what partners to keep out. But in the end, I did manage to get to the final challenge on the 100th floor, that being the boss, Bonetail. Him being even deemed in-game as the hardest thing in the game to beat, even harder than the final boss. And this is because of his massive HP going up all the way to 200, and his attacks doing at least 8 points of damage to you and your partner. But at the end of the day, realistically, this is just a reskin of the first boss of the game. So that means if you remember how to properly guard and super guard against Hooktail's attacks, then you're good here. And really the fight to me was really just a war of attrition. Me just slowly whittling down his health while I try to heal myself. And well, honestly, in the end, Bonetail was really not that hard. I managed to take him down with relative ease. But either way, I finally managed to beat the Bone Dragon, claim my reward, and leave the Pit of 100 Trials as a victor, which concludes my third non-experience. And now we'll move on to my fourth and final one for this video. And just like with the last two parts, we find ourselves once again at the GTA trilogy, with the final game in it, that being GTA San Andreas. And well, what exactly can you say about San Andreas that hasn't been said already by many other people? I would still say that to this day that this is the definitive GTA game, with just so much packed in here. But I'm sure we all know that already, so I'm not really going to dwell on any of the details. So then we bring ourselves to the question of what exactly did I miss out with this game? Well, despite just saying all that positive stuff about this game, as a kid I actually never beat it. And that is all due to one particular part of this game. A part that happens like roughly just over the halfway point of the game, that being Flight School. And well, to put it bluntly, I just couldn't pass it because I had no clue what I was doing. And well, that's due to the fact that the version I was playing was the PC version. Outside of like accelerating and braking, I had no clue how to pilot anything that flew. I didn't know how to rudder a plane, and I didn't know how to tilt a helicopter forwards or backwards. Hell, I didn't even know how to change the jet settings to make it go fast. And I really did want to beat this part of the game, like looking in the in-game menus or the instruction booklets of how to fly a plane properly, but then seeing stuff like Numlock 9 or whatever that wasn't on my keyboard, or if it wasn't working. But basically, a long story short is that I never got to finish Flight School. So then the question becomes, did I ever come back to San Andreas and actually finish it? Well, if I'm being completely honest, out of the many things throughout these 3 videos that I've never done, this is probably the most overcorrected one that I've done, since I've not only beaten the Flight School, but the entirety of San Andreas, as well as 100%ing it many different times across many different versions of it. Because I mean, it's San Andreas, can you really blame me? But having said all that, that concludes my final non-experience, as well as the video as a whole. As well as this series as a whole, if I really think about it, since I really only wanted to do 3 parts of it. Although that's not to say I couldn't return back to this topic. But either way, this was a fun topic to cover, to look back on what I never got to do in my favorite games, and even in some cases finally give myself a reason to do them. But anyway, thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye for now.